Today, for my presentation, I want to give a blockchain real estate 101. And I just want to put the pieces together for you guys, because this is where I think a lot of people struggle, is they might understand payments, or they might understand title, or they might understand tokenization. But what most people seem to struggle with is, wait, how does this all work together? When is this going to happen? And they have trouble distinguishing these different applications because there's so much going on, both in real estate and in blockchain. So today I'm hoping to just make it very clear, hopefully tell you guys some new things and reinforce some old things. So if you're tweeting, I'm at Ragnar on Twitter, and this is my website, Lifthrasir.is. So if you want to send me a message, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm the founder of IBREA, which was started in 2013, and then VLOX is my startup. Okay, so this is what we're going to go over. The real estate pain points, the solution to these real estate pain points. We're going to talk about, just really quick, the blockchain fundamentals. We're going to go over the real world applications, which is what most people care about. How does this actually become useful and real? I'm going to go over assessing blockchains, because now we have too many blockchains, and then action steps at the end. So one of the criticisms of blockchain has been that it is a solution looking for a problem, which I completely disagree with. Why? Because real estate has so many problems. These are just a few. For example, illiquid conveyance. It's very hard to transfer ownership of a property. Very difficult. Slow price discovery. If you want to know how much does this building cost right now if I wanted to buy it, can I just Google that? Can I find it somewhere? No. Real estate is one of the few things left where we don't know the price of things. I can't believe that. Third, opaque due diligence. When you buy Google stock, Apple stock, how long does it take you to do the due diligence? You just pull up all the documents, you could read the reports, you could read their numbers, you could read reviews. What about real estate when you buy a property? How long does it take you to do the due diligence? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days on a complex commercial deal? Weak data integrity, security, and accessibility. So our data is fractured. It's all over the place. It's not very secure. We have companies that mine the data and sell the data back to us, and this is public data. Transaction costs. So transaction costs are high. Why? Because we have lots of middlemen. A lot of you in the room probably make money this way. So it's because of you we have high transaction costs. Siloed and inaccessible data. So data is not readily available and it's not inexpensive. Our software for real estate isn't that good. It's still in these silos. They don't really interoperate very well. They're often proprietary. The legacy real estate software is usually closed source, which hopefully all of you are of the philosophy that open source is generally better and safer. And legal inconsistencies. So this is across countries, across states, and in the United States, real estate is often done at the county level. So the counties actually do things differently, which people in Europe think, why do you do that? And I don't know why, but that's how we do it. So even across counties, we have legal inconsistencies. And finally, fraud. So a couple of years ago, the FBI said deed and mortgage fraud was the #1 white-collar crime. So I'm starting off this morning on a nice, positive note with all these problems. So I think I'm proving the point that, yes, real estate has problems to solve by blockchain. So I talked about all these terrible things, but what's the cause of these pain points in real estate? Well, I think you could summarize it in 2 words: fragmentation and centralization. And up here I have various examples of how we have proprietary software, we have siloed data, you need a third party, we have these technologies. So fragmentation, what do I mean by that? It means fragmentation of software. So the software doesn't talk to each other, it's not interoperable. Our organizations are fragmented, so we have banks, we have title companies, we have brokers, we have the owners, we have the lawyers, and they're sort of in their silos and they don't always talk well together and work well together. They're fragmented in their own piece of the puzzle. Fragmentation of payment systems. So if you're in Europe and you want to buy a property in the US, you guys have a different banking system than in the US. And so when you say, send me a wire, and they ask for, SWIFT or whatever it is, sometimes we don't have that or you don't have that. So fragmentation is one cause of our pain points. The second cause is centralization. So centralization obviously means power in one person or entity. So centralization in terms of money, only the government prints money. Usually only the bank is the ones who handle the money. Usually information is centralized in either brokers or the government. So centralization is a problem because when you have a monopoly on anything, it tends to be expensive and not work as well. So I'm being negative, but I'm just, I think, describing the reality of where we are in real estate. So if our problems in real estate are caused by fragmentation and centralization, what is the solution? Unification and decentralization. So what do I mean by that? So here I have this chart which shows if you use blockchain and distributed file storage, how we could actually unify our software. So our software talks to each other. Our software is open source. You can build your own applications on top of the software, and hopefully that will allow everything to work better together. So whether your application is a payment application, or it's a title application, or it's an escrow application, or it's a tokenization application, the idea is with open source blockchain and open source distributed file storage, this is all going to be frictionless, and it's going to be more secure, and we're going to be able to iterate faster because everyone is working together. Second, decentralization, which is what you hear a lot in blockchain, and I think it's overused right now, but generally it's a good thing. So decentralized, meaning right now, raising money and paying for real estate is kind of centralized with the banks. You get a loan or maybe equity, but that's it. And the idea is with blockchain, hopefully we're going to be able to crowdfund things more. We're going to be able to do more shared equity, more crowdfunded equity, more crowdfunded debt. So we're going to be able to decentralize money. And in terms of other applications that we have, money, we're going to be able to decentralize the types of money. So you can pay in euros or dollars or Bitcoin or Ether or Litecoin or something else. In terms of the process of transferring property, we're going to be able to have more ways to transfer property. So instead of just paper, now we can hopefully do it on the blockchain. My point is that I believe that the pain points in real estate can be solved through blockchain and distributed file storage. That's going to give us unity and decentralization. So before we get too deep, I just want to go over some blockchain fundamentals. How many of you here own Bitcoin? Raise your hand. Oh, great. How many of you here own Ether? Excellent. See, we do have veterans in the room, experts. This is wonderful. When I speak to real estate, just a standard real estate crowd, it's only maybe 5% that own any cryptocurrency. So you guys need to go back to your companies and your countries, and you guys are the ambassadors for blockchain because this is still way over their head. So here's just some basic fundamentals. So what can you do with blockchain? Number one, you create a digital scarce asset. For example, Bitcoin is a digital scarce asset. Number two, blockchain allows you to trade peer-to-peer without permission or need from a third party with a low risk of counterfeiting. For example, you can trade Bitcoin peer-to-peer, no third party, and you can't counterfeit Bitcoin. Third, blockchain gives you an immutable public ledger. I have a little asterisk because not every blockchain is immutable, especially we found out this last week with a couple of attacks on some smaller chains. But the big blockchains like Bitcoin are immutable. Fourth, blockchain allows you to do trust minimized conditional payments, otherwise known as smart contracts. And last, it's better to think of blockchain as a protocol and not as an app. So when I hear people talking about this blockchain is Facebook and that blockchain is MySpace, it's the completely wrong paradigm. Blockchain really is more of a protocol with the house rules that allow you to then build applications on top of them. So what is blockchain not? Maybe this is more important. Blockchain is not for storing documents. I've seen a couple startups saying they're putting leases on the blockchain and they're gonna use blockchain to store their files. And these are large startups that are well-funded, and I just start breaking out in hives because I don't know if they know what they're talking about, but blockchain is not for storing documents. It's hard to scale. Number two, just digitally signing something and hashing does not mean you have a blockchain. It doesn't mean you're doing blockchain if you're just digitally signing or hashing something. Those are components of blockchain, but that alone is not blockchain. So when a real estate company says we're hashing our documents, therefore we're the first blockchain real estate company, no. Third, a blockchain is not supposed to be an editable database. I think it was about 2 years ago, it was, well, I won't say the company, but they came out with this blockchain that they said had this feature that you can edit it in case of a mistake. Kind of defeats the purpose of blockchain. And finally, again, blockchain isn't really an application, it's more of a protocol. So probably for a lot of you, this is basics, but I think it's good just to kind of level set. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about the real world applications and hopefully how they fit together. So money, digital assets, conditional payments, and the ledger. So far, the most proven application of blockchain is money. Money, when you think of blockchain, think of money. That is the most proven use case for blockchain is money. Now, we really don't understand money. I never learned about what money was in high school or college. So really quick, money is defined by three things. First, it can be a store of value. This is like gold. Gold is a store of value. Real estate is a store of value. You park your money there and it stays that value or hopefully goes up. Number two, money can be a unit of account. So what does that mean? When you go to buy something, the price is in dollars or euros or Bitcoin or something. It's a unit of account. Number three, money can be a medium of exchange. So I say, I want to sell you my property and I want to use dollars or Bitcoin. That's a medium of exchange. So money actually has three components. And money goes through these stages. For example, Bitcoin is a store of value. It's kind of a unit of account in some cases, and it can be a medium of exchange, but it's not completely there yet. So over here on the left is this neat chart that this guy put together, medium.com by JB. He's great if you follow him. And he kind of compared these different kinds of money, Bitcoin, gold, and fiat, and he gave grades based on, is the money durable? Is the money portable? Is it fungible? Verifiable? Is it divisible? Is the money scarce? Does it have an established history? And is the money censorship resistant? So when you think of money, think of these categories and realize there really isn't a perfect money. And you want to pick the right money for what you're doing. And Bitcoin is not perfect, neither is gold or fiat. And this is going to evolve, I think, over time. So blockchain application, money. But what's special about blockchain money that's different than fiat or gold or other forms? It's these things right here. With blockchain money like Bitcoin, it's digital. The founder of Twitter and Square, he came out and he said the internet deserves its own currency, and he thinks it will be Bitcoin. He hopes it is. So we need a currency for our digital internet age. Second, blockchain money can be special because it can be censorship resistant. The best example of this was WikiLeaks. Several years ago, WikiLeaks released some really controversial files, and the government pressured Visa and MasterCard to stop accepting payments for WikiLeaks, and they did. They didn't have to pass a law. They just simply pressured these private companies to censor WikiLeaks. So what did WikiLeaks do? They started accepting Bitcoin. And years later, Julian Assange had this really funny tweet where he said, thank you, US government, because now WikiLeaks is sitting on this pile of Bitcoin. So WikiLeaks now has a lot of money in Bitcoin. See, sometimes the government does things right. So that's censorship resistant. There's a lot of power in censorship resistant for the right use cases. Third aspect of blockchain money, it's deflation. Excuse me. It's difficult to seize. This is very important. Sometimes the government will take your money and you did not do anything wrong, and it takes a year or two to find out you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes you're an oppressive regime like China or Venezuela or New York, where the government has a little bit too much power over private citizens. So this is a very powerful thing. Fourth, deflationary. And this isn't true for all blockchain currencies. Bitcoin is one of the deflationary currencies. What does this mean? Is that unlike the dollar or the euro, which inflates, they print more of it. In the case of Bitcoin, at least, it's deflationary. So it will eventually be a fixed supply. This is one proposition. This is one reason why people think Bitcoin will go up in value over time, because it's deflationary. And finally, this sort of money is peer-to-peer, or it can be if you do it correctly. This will allow us to cut out a lot of middlemen. This will allow us to do transactions that some governments don't want you to. This will allow for less friction in transactions, because if you could move money peer-to-peer, you don't have these third parties that can charge you fees and make mistakes and tell you no. And this isn't just for oppressive regimes. Just a very simple thing like, I want to do a wire transfer on a Sunday. Like we had to pay for this venue, and we tried to do it on a Sunday, but all the banks were closed. And then we tried to do it on a holiday here in Amsterdam, and the banks were closed. You need just peer-to-peer money to do that. And I said, will you accept our Bitcoin? They couldn't. But if they did, we could have paid them. And so money is the best application of blockchain to date. Next application I want to talk about are digital assets. So these are just tokens. I think a lot of you probably are very familiar with tokens. Most commonly, they're used in ICOs. So what do blockchain tokens do? First, they could represent an asset or a right. So for example, a piece of property is an asset. You could have a token that represents a real estate asset, and you could trade that token, or you could fractionalize that token. Or the token can represent a right maybe to income. For example, you have a token that gives you a dividend, which there's a company here, that's something that they've done. So you have a right to revenue, or you have a right to ownership in a company. So that's kind of what the two things tokens allow you to do, asset or right, or to access a service. Second is these tokens are scarce digital good for programmability. So you see this more in Ethereum, where you use the Ether token to fuel the application. It allows you to program certain things by using the token. So a big thing I think this year in 2018 that you're going to see are security tokens. So tokens that represent equity or stock. Instead of your utility token, which was, you saw a lot of that in 2017, I think you're going to see a lot of security tokens. So the next application is smart contracts, which is unfortunately not very accurate. Most of these aren't very smart, and they're not legal contracts. So here's the definition: a computer protocol intended to digitally facilitate, verify, or enforce the negotiation and performance of a contract. These are just conditional payments. Conditional payments. When you think smart contract, conditional payments. So the person who really invented this idea was Nick Szabo, probably at least 20 years ago, and he's given the example of a vending machine is a smart contract. So traditionally, when you buy a bag of chips, what happens? You go to the store, and there's a human on the other side of the counter, and they have the chips, and you have the money, and you talk to the person there, and you say, let's do a contract. Let's agree that I'll give you money and you give me the bag of chips. That's a contract. It's a human-based contract. So what's a smart contract? A vending machine. So a vending machine, there's a bag of chips, you have the money, and you say, okay, machine, if I give you the money, will you give me the bag of chips? You put in the money, you put in the code, and the software runs that contract of exchanging chips for money. So that's really what a smart contract is. It's software, it's a machine that is executing an agreement that's based on certain conditions being met. The conditions here being someone has the correct amount of money and someone has the correct bag of chips. So it's easy to get lost in what a smart contract is, especially in real estate. I think people are overreaching with what they're trying to do with smart contracts, and I think they're going to get in trouble. So a couple of examples. Here I have Bitcoin. So there's two examples of a Bitcoin smart contract I want to talk about. First is a multi-signature. Who knows what a Bitcoin multi-sig transaction is? Oh, okay, good. Just a few of you. Good. This is a very powerful but basic smart contract. So what this basically is, as you guys know, when you do a transaction, you have private keys that allow you to access or do a transaction on a blockchain. And normally you just have one private key that controls that. You have the private key. But you can create 2 private keys or 3 private keys or 4 or 5 private keys, and you can give those to different people. And then you could specify how many of those people need to sign the transaction. So let's say I'm gonna do a deal with my friend Lutz here, and I'm gonna buy his property, okay? And I'm gonna buy it with Bitcoin. But we don't really trust each other. Even though we're friends, when it comes to doing deals, we don't trust each other. So we say, okay, let's do a Bitcoin multi-signature payment for the property. So we find a third person, let's say my friend Justin, and we tell Justin, hey, we're gonna do this deal, and if there's a problem, we'll come to you. So what happens is we create 3 private keys. I get one, Lutz gets one, and Justin gets one. And we set up the transaction so that 2 out of those 3 private keys need to sign that Bitcoin for the transaction to go through. So what happens is, I want to buy his property. So I put, let's say it's $1 million in Bitcoin into this Bitcoin multi-sig. And Lutz sees it, he says, great, the money's there. I can't now just take that money out. Lutz can't just take that money out. Justin can't just take that money out. Why? Because we need at least 2 signatures. So I put the money in there, Lutz is happy, I visit his property, I'm happy with it. I say, hey, let's do this deal. So we sign it with our Bitcoin private keys. That was 2 out of the 3, and the money gets transferred. We didn't have to use an escrow agent. We didn't have to call the bank. The bank isn't closed on a Sunday or on a holiday or in the middle of the night. Lutz is in one part of the country, I'm in another country. And we were able to do this peer-to-peer. Blockchain money, peer-to-peer. So this is an example of a smart contract using Bitcoin multi-sig. Another great example of this is, imagine transferring ownership of a property. And I'll talk about this a little later. But imagine having a blockchain token for the deed. And you do a multi-sig smart contract for the deed. You give one to the bank, you have one, and a lawyer has one. And the bank says, you know what, we're not gonna release this property until the loan is paid off and the conditions are met. So the banks should love this because now they have actual cryptographic control of their title. Whereas before it was just based on paper that they had control of the title. So this is very underused, but it's very powerful and it's actually very secure. The next smart contract I want to talk about is time lock. So Bitcoin allows you to do a time lock transaction where you can set a certain time for the Bitcoin to be released. So let's go back to my example with Lutz. I say, I'm going to give you this deposit, and after 30 days, it's going to be automatically released to you. So that way we don't have to call the bank and go back and forth. He knows he's going to get his money after 30 days. That's just programmed in. So I'm actually surprised that there's not more people working on this, these 2 types of smart contracts for real estate, because they're very powerful, they save a lot of money, and they're proven, the technology. We have hardware wallets. This has been around for a few years, so hopefully someone in this room will work on it, especially if you work in a bank. I can see this sort of being the standard way of doing actually real estate. Finally, smart contracts, Ethereum and others. This is where you do kind of an on-chain general computation. So Ethereum has this advantage where you can do more complex smart contracts, use oracles, third parties, do more conditionality. The trade-off there is there's some security and scaling issues with those. So these are sort of 2 types of smart contracts, the Bitcoin basic ones, and then Ethereum and a few others that are coming out. And finally, our fourth application for blockchain in real estate is the ledger. And when we talk about the blockchain, we're talking about the ledger of transactions. So there's kind of two things you use the blockchain ledger for. This allows you to track ownership of assets, obviously like Bitcoin or Ether. You want to know how much Bitcoin or Ether you have, you look at the blockchain. That's the record of your assets. But you could also track property titles or equity in a startup. Blockchains have this public ledger that's supposed to be immutable. And second for the ledger is timestamping. So this allows you to take a file and do a transaction, and then you anchor that blockchain, anchor that data in the blockchain. So you have a timestamp, so you can say this file existed at least as early as this timestamp. And you can imagine why that's important. So let's say you're going to buy a property and you say, okay, show me your financials for the last 5 years. And the broker gives you the information, but you don't really believe it because brokers tell the truth half the time. But the broker says, no, wait, you can trust me because this financial statement, we timestamped it 5 years ago. So at least they didn't make up that financial information last night at midnight. It actually existed in time years ago. Now, he might have tampered with it, but the point is timestamping can be very powerful. And I think probably Lutz will talk about that a little later on. So I next want to talk about a real world use case, something that's actually been done, which is our pilot program that IBREA and my startup Velox did out in Chicago with their government in Cook County with their recorder's office. So before I go over our pilot, I just want to again reiterate what blockchain does. So you can create a near impossible to counterfeit scarce digital asset, like a token. It allows you to transfer that asset to someone else, peer-to-peer, and it gives you a ledger of transactions. So just keep this in mind when I talk about what we did in Cook County. So this is what I'm going to spend a little bit of time on. So we did this as a pilot program last year in 2017 with Hogan Lovells Law Firm, Goldberg Cohn Law Firm, Blockchain Consulting, IBREA, Velox, and the county. So what did we do? We created this scarce digital asset token. It's nearly impossible to counterfeit. It was a deed. We created a blockchain deed. Second, what we did is we tested transferring that deed to someone else, and this was considered the conveyance. Third, we had a ledger of the transaction. So going back to these three things, we did those three things. So let me go into some more detail about this. Oh, by the way, I wrote a report on this. It's on medium.com. If you look me up on medium.com, Ragnar Lifthrasir, and then search permissionless real estate title transfers, I wrote up this in great detail. So if you want to get the details, please just read that. It's pretty in depth. So I'm just going to summarize this. So these are the questions that this pilot program answered. Number one, can you legally transfer ownership of real estate on the Bitcoin blockchain? Can a blockchain real estate title transfer be recorded in the traditional government public record? So not the government running blockchain, just we did a blockchain transfer of the real estate. Can it appear in the government ledger, yes or no? And then third, we answer the question, can you do both without needing special permission or partnership with the county government? And the answer was yes, yes, and yes. So this was very, very exciting. So we had two big accomplishments with this. First, we successfully completed several tests on the Bitcoin blockchain real estate conveyance with a Chicago property owner. And this met all the legal, procedural, and software requirements agreed upon by the pilot program participants. So with the partnership with the government, we were able to say, yes, a blockchain-based transfer of real estate is legal. You can do it. It's not crazy. It's not illegal. You can do it. So I always knew that was the case, and I told people this is completely legal. But of course, no one believed me, and the companies don't want to do it until it has the holy water blessing of the government. That's the way the world works, so that's okay. But we did this. Second accomplishment was the county approved this legal instrument that we used. So after we did the blockchain conveyance, we printed out this thing that said deed on it, and it said blockchain deed on it, and they said, yes, if you give this to us, we will record it, and it was gonna be in the public record. So even though the county didn't do anything blockchain, they weren't running any software, we were able to produce a document that allowed us to record this. Now, this might be strange to a lot of people in this room because in Europe, you guys have a different land system. So I'm gonna just briefly explain how it's different in the US than here. So in the US, we do it differently. So we're on the deed-based system, which means that someone who sells a property creates this paper, called the deed, and it says, I'm gonna sell my property so-and-so, and you just do that directly. You actually don't go down to the government office to do this. So what is a deed? A deed is basically, two things. First, it just contains some language that says what you're going to do. I am going to sell my property to John Smith. Simple. And second, it has to have an accurate description of the property. So I am going to sell my property to John Smith, and that property is 123 Main Street, New York, New York. It's more detailed than that, but that's the basic idea. So just simplifying what a deed is these two things. Very, very simple. Transferring the property and which property it is. Now in most states, there's a couple other things you usually have. Usually the person transferring the property has to sign it. It's usually notarized, so notary says, yes, you are John Smith, you are Bob Smith, yes, you signed this paperwork, I notarized it, okay, great. And usually the person that's buying the property, they have to actually physically accept the deed in some way. And this sounds kind of basic and boring, but it's important because even the lawyers got this wrong. Even the government officials sort of got this wrong because they get mixed up with the escrow and the payment and the title insurance and all these other things which aren't part of the deed. So this is a deed. So then, here's an example of a deed right here. You can see the language, it says deed, it says the property, describes the property below, who they're sending it to, very simple. So in the US, like again, we're on this deed system. So what does this mean? It means that we can transfer property peer to peer. I can sell my property to Lutz and we don't need to first go to the government, we just sign the deal. So again, there's no government participation in the transfer. We just have to exchange the contract and the money. As part of this transfer, the taxes and the liens and the recording are separate, and the payment and the escrow is separate. It's part of it, but it's separate. So it's important to keep that in mind because people get really confused by what we did. Second part, so after you transfer a property, that's been done privately. No one knows you did that. So if I transfer my property to Lutz, him and I know it. We have a contract, we have a record, but someone else doesn't know it. So I can go and sell it to someone else unless I go and take this down to the government and say, please put this into the public record so that anyone can research this and see who currently owns the property. It's called public notice. And this is what the governments do in the US. This is optional, but most people still do it. So in the US, it's a two-step process. So this is why we were able to do this, is because in the US, the transfer of ownership is peer-to-peer and it doesn't involve the government. Now in Europe, you guys obviously have the title system, the title registry. And this, so both the conveyance and the recording are performed by the government. I think they're called notaries in most countries. So it's actually the government doesn't. And we were talking about this before it started in Canada, for example, how it's difficult to use blockchain for transferring real estate in most countries because the government does it. So the government would have to run blockchain software, and that's, I think, unlikely. So in these title countries, the change of ownership is done by actually just changing the ledger. There's no deeds. They just have to say who owns it now, change his name now to the new owner, and that's pretty much it. And the government guarantees title, so you guys don't have title insurance, you're lucky. Okay, so let's go back to this a little bit, because it's kind of abstract. So a deed is usually on paper, right? It's a paper document, it's a PDF. And what's the problem with that? The problem is fraud. So it's really easy to open up Photoshop and create a deed. It says, I now own this property or something. And this is actually quite common. So in the US, the government doesn't guarantee title. So what happens is you go down there and you show them the document, and they, by law, have to put it into the public record. They can't censor what people say. They don't verify any claims. They just say, is it formatted correctly? Did you pay the fee? Yes, like a robot, they then file it. And so this can create a lot of fraud. So people will create a deed that says they own a property and they'll sell it to someone else. They'll get a loan on it. They will find an abandoned property that doesn't have anyone living in it. They'll create a deed that says they own the property, and then they'll rent the property. This has been done. So the problem with paper-based deeds is a lot of fraud, and just paper in general. Like, it's inefficient, it's hard to search. So we thought about this, and we did kind of a mental experiment where we said, well, what if instead of printing this deed on paper, what if we printed it on a dollar bill? Because on a dollar bill, it's harder to counterfeit. It has some value there, right? So that would hopefully cut down on fraud and would give more value and more security to that deed. But obviously, you're not going to do this because it's probably illegal. But hypothetically, you could do this. So we thought, okay, we can't do it on the dollar bill, but what if we did this on a different currency? What if instead of printing this on a dollar bill or a euro bill, what if we printed this on Bitcoin, the currency? And that's basically what we did. So we said, this Bitcoin colored coin token is the deed. And we had all the language on the deed off-chain in IPFS. We had a file that linked to the token. So data off-chain on and then connected to a token. And that token was like the deed. So when instead of handing you, signing the deed and handing it to you, here's your deed, instead I just send you the token. I send you the deed. So it's a medium. Paper is a medium. The blockchain is just a medium to transfer this information. So that was the key. That was the key. We're just creating a digital deed. And it was great. We ended up integrating this with the Trezor hardware wallet, which made it even more safe, so you can keep your deed on a Trezor, which allows you to do all sorts of things and keep it more secure. Okay, let me see my time. I'm just about out of time, so I'm going to hurry up here and finish. So really quick, I'm going to talk about a different topic, assessing blockchains really fast. So there's a lot of blockchains. There's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, there's Litecoin, there's EOS. There's all sorts of options now for people. And it's important to assess the right one for your application. And I came up with these 10 ways to, what I think is relatively objective for assessing which blockchain. So first, I believe you should have an open source permissionless blockchain, so public blockchain, not a private blockchain, with a few exceptions. Most applications should use a public blockchain, but there's a few where private blockchain is okay. Second, your blockchain should have real estate functionality. It sounds obvious, but not every blockchain has full real estate functionality, like Hyperledger. So Hyperledger doesn't allow you to transfer money. It's mostly data. So Hyperledger can do some things, but it doesn't allow you to create a token, and it's not currency. So Hyperledger can't serve all your purposes, just some of them. Proof of work consensus is the most proven way of having a secure blockchain. Other ones are going for proof of stake, which is different. But I'm kind of old and conservative, and I like to just kind of stick with what works until something is proven otherwise. So if proof of stake ends up working, I'd be open to that. But right now, proof of work is proven, even though it has drawbacks. 5, look at the performance of your blockchain, like what are the fees? How long do you have to wait to securely transfer it? Does the blockchain get congested? Decentralized, that word is thrown around a lot. The fact is probably 95% of blockchains are not decentralized at all. They are controlled by a few number of individuals, despite what they say. Only the largest blockchains can be considered decentralized, and even then it's questionable for the top 5. 7, your blockchain should be immutable, so you shouldn't be able to change it after the fact. I won't bring up any names. 8, it should be stable, so your blockchain should not have a lot of exploits, a lot of hacks. Hopefully it's been battle proven. Remember, we're talking about real estate here, so high value assets with very conservative people. 9, look for its track record. You know, I'm very empirical when I look at blockchains, and I just say, look, I have my philosophy, but at the end of the day, the data doesn't lie. So look at the track record of a blockchain. Or does it not have a track record? Is it just new and exciting and have lots of features and promises that they say is going to be, this is the new Ethereum, this is the new Bitcoin, but it doesn't have a track record? Well, that's fine. Go out and test it for a few years, and then I'm willing to use it. But I'm pretty conservative. And finally, price and liquidity. So we saw in the last couple of days, we had some attacks on some smaller blockchains. And why was that? Because they're small and they don't have a lot of value and a lot of mining going on. And so they were easier to attack. So actually the size does matter when it comes to blockchain. So just some things to keep in mind. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap up. So what can you guys do? A lot of you already own, Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency. That's great. If you don't, please buy some. It's so important to get skin in the game. If nothing else, get skin in the game. I know a lot of you already do, but for those who don't, get skin in the game. This is so important. If you get skin in the game, you're gonna get really smart really fast. And I like to give the example of when I got my first Bitcoins in 2011. And I thought I was really smart because I created this password that was really long, very strong, that no one could hack, right? And I thought I was smart because I also created this password that I knew I would never forget. It was like the color of my first car, the first concert I went to, my phone number and the name of my dog or something like that. So I thought I was pretty smart. Fast forward months later, I go to move this Bitcoin and I could not remember the password. Could not remember the password. And I have tried every combination and I still haven't been able to move those Bitcoins. So, but this was actually kind of good, if you can say that, because I learned to use a password manager. I learned to be more careful. I learned to back things up. And so just by getting skin in the game, it motivates you to really do your research and to really understand what is a private key, what's a web wallet versus a hardware wallet. Like, what are all these things and hashing and these, these components? Because blockchain is so hard to understand and it's so abstract until you have, something to lose, you're not going to get it. So really quick, for at least Bitcoin, I like the Samurai wallet, desktop Electrum, and hardware like Trezor or Ledger. But that works the same for, I think, Ether. And my final pitch is please get more active in IBREA. In terms of like our Twitter, our LinkedIn group, our Slack, our other events. We're restructuring, like I said, we're gonna be doing some exciting things, so be patient, but in the future, we're gonna be doing a lot more. So please get active. If you're not already a member, please join. And that's it, thank you.